Welcome to the Directors Guild of Canada online learning system. The module you've just started will cover the basics of how to create a location budget. This video module is about 30 minutes in length. If you haven't watched the module on creating location breakdowns, you may wish to do so before you begin this one. It's also highly advisable that you have a good working knowledge of Microsoft Excel before you complete this module. There are a number of tutorials on how to use Excel available online, as well as courses available through many institutions. This key document is created by the Locations Department and will provide estimated costs for all aspects of the work that will be done on location for a film or television show. Many location managers will create this document themselves, some will share the duty with others in the department, and some will make it a group effort with input from team members as they see fit. In this module, we will review how to create a location budget using an Excel template. The template for this document can be downloaded at the link provided. The broader concepts presented here can be used with any budget template. When preparing a location budget, the location breakdown can provide a succinct guide that will keep you on track and assure that you don't forget any sets. All the required sets should be listed on your breakdown. It will also give you page counts divided into day, night, interior, and exterior. The notes section will contain any red flag elements that will need special consideration within the budget. As discussed in the Location Breakdown module, if you already have a copy of a one-line schedule when you're budgeting, then you'll be able to allocate days within your budget based directly on that. This will give you an idea of which sets the first AD is thinking will be the anchor locations for each day. Ultimately, the first AD will determine how many pages of work will be allocated to each filming day. If you have the ability to communicate with them in advance of doing your budget, it's a very good idea to do so. The number of pages that will be allocated to a filming day varies based on the type and length of program that's being produced. There are also other factors that will influence this, such as stunts, special effects, or other things like working with children or animals, which always take more time. Working at elevation, on water, or in hard-to-get-to locations would also add complexity and time to the shoot. Even if the first AD isn't on the show yet, the producer and PM are likely to have a rough schedule that you could get a copy of for budgeting purposes. Consulting with all of these individuals before creating your budget is certainly advisable, as they can provide basic guidance about the particular production for you to follow. Here are some general rules that you can apply in budgeting if you don't have any of the aforementioned tools or people at your disposal. On a television series, you could expect to shoot as little as 2 or as much as 10 pages of script in a day. This can vary broadly based on the length of the program, complexity of the scenes, and how many days are allocated to each episode. In the somewhat distant past, episodic television followed a very predictable pattern of days required to film an episode. Typically, a half-hour show would be allocated 4 days of prep and 4 days of filming. Most one-hour episodes were done with 8 days of prep and 8 days of filming. With the introduction of peak TV, productions have gotten much more complicated than they once were, and the days to film an episode are a bit more flexible based on the needs of a given script. Some shows may allocate another day to an episode that they're planning to submit for an award, for example. Many productions also now film in blocks of 2 or more episodes to maximize efficiencies on the availability of actors, locations, etc. Pilot shoots will vary depending on how many days the studio has allocated to the schedule. On a pilot, the producer, PM, and first AD will all likely be at your disposal quite early on. It's always advisable to ask for guidance if you have the ability to do so. Not all series begin with a pilot these days, as was common practice on network shows. But if you do find yourself working on a pilot, keep in mind that they're essentially a sales tool, a single episode that's created to sell the producing studio on the value of taking the show to series. For this reason, pilots often have larger budgets, longer shooting schedules, and more emphasis is put on quality to give the series the highest chance of being made. TV movies, also referred to as movies of the week, film an average of 6 to 8 pages per day. If you're on a feature, particularly those with larger budgets, page counts can shift broadly from one day to the next based on the content and complexity of the scenes in question. You could be on a mountaintop filming as little as 1/8 of a page in a day if the scenes are complicated. Or you could be interior in a smaller set filming 2 people having a discussion, and your page count could shoot up dramatically based on the simplicity of the work to be done. The location budget is a key tool of the location department. Not only does it communicate your estimated budgetary needs for a production to the producer, production manager, and accountant, it also provides a single document for your entire department to refer to when money is to be spent. Given the literally dozens of transactions that will happen every single day once production is underway, coaching your department to refer to the budget to ascertain how much money is available for repeating costs like parking, tent placements, set deck or lighting access points, gear stashes, or holding areas, just to name a few, is not only good for their development, it's likely to save you from answering many questions from your team. The labor page, which we'll review in a few minutes, contains vital details of your team's start and finish dates, as well as their expected rates. It also shows how many day call scouts you feel you'll need. On larger budget feature films, you may be on the clock for a period of time in production where you are working with the producer, PM, and accountant to try and get the overall budget to a figure that the studio will be willing to greenlight. A location budget is, at its heart, and like many other location documents, a list of repeating elements with a few added that are specific to your particular use of a location. For example, every location will contain funds for parking, holding, gear stashes, set deck, lighting access points, etc. The location budget template provided includes a list of items to be considered within each line item. This is just a reminder list to help get you started when you're new to budgeting. You won't need to include each and every one of these items on each page, and you may wish to remove the prompts that you aren't using to avoid confusion. Once you get the hang of it, you can remove these placeholders altogether. While these repeating elements are handy to have for reference, there will always be those items that are specific to a location. For example, if you're filming in an industrial building that has a built-in crane, your crew may ask for its use. This will mean that you'll have the cost of a crane operator and probably an added rental for the machinery itself as well. The police line includes a prompt for traffic control, which is the most common thing that you'll budget for in that line. However, if you have need of a standby ambulance or fire truck, those would also go into the police line item. The red flag elements you noted on your location breakdown can be handy to remind you when budgeting that you need to include these location-specific cost items. While it is valuable to view the location budget as a set of repeating elements, you should also be careful not to over-repeat things while creating your budget. Often you'll be parking at an anchor location for the day and will only move your equipment vehicles from one location to the next. If you had one anchor location and two sub-locations on a day, you would only need one base camp and crew park. Then you'd need to add some unit parking and perhaps generator placement for the sub-locations. You would not need to include a base camp for each location. Always review your budget when it's complete to be sure you haven't doubled up elements in this way, as it's a quick way to put yourself over budget unnecessarily. It's also embarrassing when the producer, PM, or accountant find these errors versus you avoiding them in the first place. Keep in mind if you are making a full company move midday, then you'll need to add a second full set of parking costs into your budget. And always check that your budget is adding up as it should on all pages before submitting it. When you first start to budget, it's not always obvious what amounts you should be working with for each item. Using a budgeting guide, at least until you get the hang of it, is a good way to ensure that you keep your estimates in line with market rates. A budgeting guide for BC locations can be downloaded to the link provided. While a guide of this sort can provide you with some idea of historical practices in terms of establishing location rates, it's crucial that you keep in mind several factors that will influence the cost of locations in the Lower Mainland. Geography is a major factor in setting location fees. This is the Regional and District Location Tax Credit Map that can be found on Creative BC's website. Productions with lower budgets have always worked further out in the Lower Mainland and into the Fraser Valley as a way to save money. There are a couple of factors that influence this. Locations in this area have traditionally been lower in cost, though the recent production boom in BC has definitely driven costs higher in all areas of the Lower Mainland. Also, these productions tap into the regional tax incentives that come into effect when a production works outside of the designated Vancouver area, as shown on the map in orange. Mid-range and higher budget productions typically try to stay closer to the city. Often the travel of their U.S. cast may be a bigger concern to them than the cost of the location fees, as the longer turnaround afforded to SAG-AFTRA members will drive a production start times later, day by day. Additional tax incentives can be accessed when productions move out further still into the areas of the province that are shown in green on this map. Typically, productions go into these areas to access specific looks and locations that can't be found closer to Vancouver. Keep in mind, as a location manager, that the rates you negotiate each and every time you film at a location will influence what future productions, your own included, will be expected to pay. The cost of location use is a significant portion of any production budget, and the more these costs rise, the less competitive BC is as a jurisdiction. So no matter which area you're working in, always endeavor to negotiate the most reasonable location fees that you can. The most important takeaway here is that you should always consult with your producer and production manager about where you should be scouting and what budgetary issues should be considered within the scouting process, as this will vary from show to show. The type of production that you're working on will certainly influence your budgeting approach, as well as the different budget levels within those production categories. On larger budget feature films, there will be a strong emphasis on attention to detail. The screen is larger and the expectations will be high. Lower budget independent films will be more budget driven, so more compromises will be made to save money. This is similar to what you will experience if you work on TV movies. Most often, the budgets are very controlled, as is dictated by the business model for these productions. Episodic television can likewise span a broad range, from lower budget productions, some of which are domestic, to mid-range TV, of which a huge amount gets produced in BC, to the very high budget peak TV shows that are being produced by companies such as Amazon, Hulu, Apple, etc. Regardless of what type of show you're working on, location costs should really be based on the level of impact and disruption that your use of a location will create. Even if you're working on a huge budget feature, if the scene you're doing is minor in terms of its level of impact on the location and surrounding neighbors, something simple like a brief dialogue scene in a front yard, then the fees should not be extravagant just because the show has money. On the other hand, if you're on a low-budget production that's proposing high-impact work, then you should expect to pay accordingly. As the location manager, it's your job to inform the producer and PM when what they want to accomplish does not fall within their budgetary constraints. In most cases, this will probably result in the work being reduced or altered. Now let's look at the process of budgeting and the creation of the budget document itself. First, let's consider the elements that make up a location budget. Beginning with the top sheet, you will want to include headings to identify the document itself. The title of the project, along with episode name and number if it's an episode of TV, will all be included. The designation of the budget, i.e. preliminary, revised with revision date, or final, along with the date it was prepared, are key, as a budget on a feature film may be reissued multiple times. It's incredibly important as production progresses that you make it easy for people to assure that they're working from the most recent documents. Equally important to the date of preparation are the date of the script and schedule that the budget is based upon. Typically, you'll also include the name of the person who prepared the document for ease of any questions that people may have. In this particular Excel budget template, the headings on the top sheet are the only information that needs to be entered manually. The rest of the information on the top sheet is automatically populated for you when you fill in the back sheets. We'll look at those in a minute. The formatting of the location budget is not really the most important thing. Lots of different people have their own versions. The key is that all the relevant information should be included and easy to interpret. Across the top of our sample location budget are a series of column headings. The first two designate the columns that contain the set codes and name for each set. The set names will correspond with what's shown in the script, not the location names. Set codes are numbers that are used by the accounting department to identify each set within their accounting system. Typically, the set codes are issued by the art department. Keep in mind that the art department will issue a code for each and every subset or room of each set where scenes take place within them. In the location department, we don't need to budget separately for each room of a location, so I typically just select the first of the applicable set codes for my location budget. If you happen to be splitting a set over more than one location, for example if you're going to shoot the interior in one place and the exterior somewhere else, then you would need to ensure that you include a line for each one so as to capture all applicable costs. The remainder of the column headings indicate the categories, sometimes called line items, that you will be budgeting within. Again, the headings may vary over different budget formats. As long as all the relevant information is accounted for, it's not important how it's laid out. The first column in our sample budget is for rentals, which are location fees. On the rear pages of the budget, I break this column down into prep, shoot, wrap, and hold. We'll look at that in a moment. The next column is called related, which are typically funds that are related to the rentals. Examples would be things like movers, accommodation costs, per diem, pet kenneling, green rooms, gear stashes, lighting or set deck access, etc. The parking column accounts for funds allocated to park the entirety of the unit. If you have a base camp, it will be shown here, along with any generator placements or other needs. This line also includes all crew vehicles and any required picture parking. There will probably also be some parking booked for prep and wrap days. Permits refers to city and location-specific permit fees, including parks permits, hydrant use, electrical permits, business licenses, highway use, etc. Next you have holding, which accounts for funds allocated to lunch and extra holding areas. This includes the use of tents and places to put them. The restoration line shows funds allocated to cleaning and/or restoration of any kind done at a location. Note that this will include minimal damages that you can clearly anticipate, such as damage to grass. Larger scale damages will be dealt with using a loss and damage form and will not be shown in the location budget. The greater production budget contains a contingency for this purpose. If you were to include the cost of floor repair, for example, every time you worked in a location with hardwood in it, you would be taking substantial amounts of money off the screen for repairs, most of which will not be needed. The line item titled Police refers to traffic control and/or any type of safety standby which is done by city officials or private agencies. This will include police, fire department, ambulance, standby, or traffic flaggers. The column that's called Miscellaneous includes funds allocated to any elements not accounted for in other areas of the budget. This will include porta potties, garbages, extra equipment rentals, etc. The liaison line will capture liaisons of any kind, whether required by the location or another entity like the city or a regulatory agency. The next column is security, which covers security costs of any kind, whether it be for the set, unit, or the location. A note here that security is most often shown in the location's budget. However, given that security is actually part of the transport department, it's a good idea to consult with the PM and accountant to be sure this is how they want it done. The final line item in the sample budget is for PAs, which cover production assistants whether working in prep, shoot, or wrap of a location, at a studio, or in any other capacity. This is followed by a column that captures the by location totals. In this sample budget, we've got a line at the bottom for studio where you'll have minimal costs. In most budgets, your studio line would have money shown in the parking, security, and PA line items only. However, from time to time, you might be doing something more complex, such as changing out sprinkler heads to a higher temperature version for a special effects burn of an interior set. In which case, you might also have a fire department standby for that work. These items would also be included in the studio line. There will also be a line for supplies, which is a place to capture those consumable items that you will need to purchase, such as cleaning supplies, paper towel, rolls of cardboard, etc. Typically, these are captured in a single column, and in this budget it's shown under the related column. Note here that the supplies line has a completely different set code. You can get this code from the accounting department directly. The lowest line in the budget will show all of the individual line items or category totals. This allows you to answer questions about budget totals either by location total or by line item. For example, you can see that our rentals total for this budget is $32,650, and our police total is $5,800. Whereas the total estimated spend at the diner is $19,368, and our total spend at City Hall is estimated to be $21,520. Of course, you can also see the individual totals for each line item within each of the sets. For example, holding at the diner is shown at $1,800. In the lowest right-hand corner, you see your budget total, which is $140,250. You can also see that there is a separate total given for department labor, listed here as $23,750. That is reflected on the final back sheet and then transferred here separately. On some shows, particularly features, you'll want to include your projected labor needs in your budget, and this is where that will show on your top sheet in this sample budget. Then that is added to your budget total, and you get an all-in total of $164,000. Here is the sample labor page that's included in this budget as the final back sheet. As you can see, this page allows you to capture those people who will work in weekly positions on your team, along with scouts, who are technically daily employees, even though many productions will let them know that they will be on for the run of the production. As well as the positions and names of your team, you can include information about how many days or weeks you're anticipating they will be needed for. Their agreed upon rate will be projected here, as well as the total estimate. And finally, their intended start and finish dates. This will provide clarity and hopefully ensure that all parties are on the same page in terms of the duration of prep, shoot, and wrap for each person. This labor breakdown does not include any car, computer, phone reimbursements, or fringes, which it's wise to point out to your accountant when you start on a show. On a television series, most LMs won't bother to include all of the weekly hires on the labor breakdown as they'll be engaged for the season. However, this page is useful to account for any added scout days you might feel you need if there are episodes where a larger amount of locations are required. On a feature film, however, the ability to communicate your anticipated prep and wrap periods can be very useful. Typically, you'll have a discussion with the producer and PM about how much prep and wrap they have budgeted for your team. There may be a bit of negotiation if you don't agree with their assessment of what's needed. Whatever you both agree can be noted here, which will help to avoid any disagreements as the production winds down as to what was discussed. Just another way that the location budget is a communications tool. Here's a sample of the back sheets that provide a breakdown of each location in this budget. This one is for Shipyard Dock. You can see that it provides a place to record the name of the actual location should you know that information. Most likely this would be filled in on the final version of your budget. The set code is also included here for ease of reference. In this budget template, the back sheets are where you will do most of your entering of information. The elements highlighted here in blue are the ones that are within the template. The ones highlighted in yellow are the ones that you will be filling in yourself. In order for you to see how this template document works, we're going to look at the back sheet as it would look when working in an Excel spreadsheet. Here is the same page as it would appear in Excel for editing purposes. Again, the blue will form a part of the document template, and the yellow is the portion that you will fill in. The columns on the far right are hidden, as you just saw on the printed or PDF version of the back sheet. When you view the page in Excel, these columns allow you to quickly calculate items that have a set rate that can be multiplied over a term, whether it be hours, days, or weeks. Let's look at the formulas that are at play in the background to do this. Here, under the prep section of the rental, you can see that we're estimating 1 day of prep, and the cost per day is estimated at $1,200. The formulas for this show up in the column that's titled Breakdown of Costs. This is the cell where the result or the total of that calculation will appear. The top section of the line items shown here is the breakdown of the site rentals. This allows you to communicate and track how many days of prep, filming, wrap, and hold are planned for at each location. These are totaled at the bottom of the section in the cell titled Site Rentals here as a subtotal. You can also insert additional lines to the spreadsheet as required to capture any number of items within each of the line items or categories. This is done using the Insert Cells function within Excel. On a large budget show, particularly on feature films, you may end up with some back sheets that run over more than one page. Inserting and deleting rows within the budget is a key piece in manipulating this Excel template. If you aren't already aware of how to do this in Excel without impacting the template formulas, this would be an important thing to learn from an Excel tutorial or course before you start using this template. The lower section allows you to capture all the detail that you include in each line item. See here under Liaison, we've got 12 hours each for prep and wrap and 8 hours allocated for the shoot day. The hidden column on the right is used for the multipliers. This shows up in the breakdown of cost column for ease of reference when you're tracking how many hours you estimated you would need. These all get added together in the left-hand column, and at the bottom you can see that your budgeted location total here is $15,155 for this location. There's a page just like this for each one of your locations. And you can also add notes here in the left-hand column if there's something that you want to be sure to remember. Just keep in mind that this is an official document that will get submitted to your producer, production manager, and accountant, and may be shared more widely than you anticipate on some shows. I also sometimes include notes where I have intentionally showed a zero balance and want to remind myself or others that this is the case. Once you've entered all this information onto the back sheet, it will populate the data section of the top sheet automatically. A reminder that the whole portion of the top sheet highlighted here in pink will be filled in from the back sheets. Important to note here that if you change the data in these cells, the necessary links and formulas will be lost and the template will no longer function as it should. Though you won't change the data, you should always double check that the information is all accurate on the top sheet. Occasionally, Excel documents can get corrupted or their formulas can get lost or altered. For this reason, it's incredibly important to double check that everything adds up as it should on all pages prior to submitting your budget. Here you can see that all the same totals from the back sheet have been transferred to the top sheet. The function of the top sheet is to allow the producer, production manager, and accountant to see a high-level overview of each location's estimated costs at a glance. The back sheet provides more granular details for each should they need that. Some location managers only submit the top sheet. However, submitting the back sheets will save you from receiving a bunch of phone calls to ask about how you plan to spend the money at each location. Of course, you will still need to track and reconcile your budget as production progresses. These processes are covered in their own video module, which can be accessed on the Learning Management System. A reiteration here of the importance that you learn how to use Excel before using this program to budget. Inevitably, budgets require many changes, and often these are needed at the least convenient times and when time is of the essence. You really must possess a good working knowledge of the program so that you'll be able to find and correct any errors in the template quickly. Following are a few budget-related takeaways for you to keep in mind. Learn Excel before using it to budget. Select a clear budget template that's easy to read. Make sure all the relevant information is accounted for. Reach out to your first AD, producer, and production manager before budgeting. Ask lots of questions about how they want you to budget for their production. Pay particular attention that you haven't doubled up on any costs. Double-check formulas and make sure everything adds up as it should. And always get someone else to look over your budget before you hand it in. Once your budget is complete, you'll submit it to the producer, PM, and accountant. If you're submitting digitally, it's a good idea to create a PDF version versus sending the Excel document itself. I hope you've enjoyed this video module. If you have any thoughts or comments on this module, please feel free to share them with us by emailing training@dgcbc.com.